guitarists. We are going to learn this song together. So it will still work on acoustic guitar. If you have an acoustic guitar, as Yvette Young said, you just got to tap harder and you will get a sound out of it eventually. I did. It took a couple weeks of just constantly playing it, trying to get better at it. All right, so let's play Lonely Habits together. So the very beginning of the song starts with drums. So what you want to do there as a guitar player is to bob your head to the rhythm, but also make the sounds under your breath, not loud enough that they get picked up by the mic, and also not in such a way that will move your guitar. Also look incredibly embarrassing in front of your partner Chloe, who is sitting here helping you with the slides. Yeah, so the first bit goes. Usually I'll just hold down on this first chord. So the first chord with my index finger, I'm pressing the 4th fret, a C sharp with my index finger. And so it's like a C sharp major chord, but I have the octave of the C sharp down a half step. So I'm playing a C with my middle finger instead of where you usually have the octave in a C major. I use my middle finger to play it down. And then you play the other notes in a C major chord. So on the D string, I have the 6th fret and the 6th fret on the B string as well. And I use my ring finger and pinky finger to do that respectively. And I use the back of my hand, the back of this hand, to get a nice wrap on the guitar. And the next thing is a natural harmonic. And you want to do it in such a way that it's as unobtrusive for all the strings on the guitar, aside from the high E string, as possible. So see, even that was probably too much of a mute on the E string. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the tip of the index finger of my tapping hand. So I'm using the index finger of my tapping hand over the 11th fret of the guitar, and then with my thumb going in underneath the index finger, I am playing the E string. So yeah, so that's how you do that first couple bars, and you just want to let that ring out as the drums finish doing their. And then we're going to do this next part, which will become a theme through the rest of the song, and it's the. So it's important to stay mindful of the chord hand. You got to keep pressing down on that at a constant pressure. You will get lazy, inevitably, because the pinky is involved, and everybody knows the pinky on the fretting hand is the laziest finger. You useless pinky, get out! And then on your tapping hand, you're going to use your index finger and your middle finger to press down on the 10th fret of the D string and the 9th fret of your B string, respectively. That's that second chord, and then you want to play it in the rhythm that I've indicated in the tab. And then do that for months and build up the stamina to do so for long enough to play the song. No, I'm just kidding. It doesn't take that long, but on acoustic guitar, it is really difficult. So the next part is, it's the chorus, but it's sung over the riff that I end up playing at the end of choruses. So it's, first you're going to hammer on the 4th fret of the A string with your index finger, and then hammer on the rest of the C sharp major chord with your ring finger. And then after you've got that and it's ringing out, you're going to press down on the D string with your index finger of your tapping finger on the 10th fret of the D string. And then you're going to press the 9th fret of the B string with your middle finger on your tapping hand. And then pull off with your middle finger. And I usually get a little bit sloppy with it. I like to try to play that C sharp major chord when I pull off the B string. And you get like a little bit of an extra hit out of it, and it kind of fills things out and keeps it going. The next note, you're just going to take off that index finger off the 4th fret, off the C sharp, and you're going to put it down. Or actually, you're going to put your middle finger of your fretting hand down on the 6th fret of your low E string. So, and following that same motion that you did up here on the 10 and the 9, on the D and the B, you're just going to move that formation down to the 15th fret of your D string and the 14th fret of your B string. All right, and now all hammer-on style, you're going to do 10th fret of your A string, 10th fret of your G string, 9th fret of your B string, 10, 10, 9. And now we're going to do legato with, I use my middle tapping finger, but your other tapping fingers aren't really going to be doing much in that moment, so you can use whatever finger you want here for this legato. And then we're going to move up to this, it looks like a bar chord, so you've got the 8th fret barred on G, B, and E, and then you're playing this A flat on your D string with your index finger. So it's, and I'm strumming upwards with my index finger to do that. So yeah, so you're gonna use your index finger to strum that chord, and then play the 12th fret of your G string and the 11th fret of your E string. And then you're going to go down to C on your A string, C on your G string, or C on your A string with your index finger, and then the 3rd fret on your G string with your middle finger, and your ring finger will play the 4th fret on your B string. And then after that, you go back into the string that whole part together. Okay, so verse 1, it's the only time we're going to play verse 1, which means it's not a very sustainable riff because it just goes away after the first time you use it. Disposable riff. The beginning of verse 1, it starts with a riff. So you're going to do that same motion that we did in the beginning of that chorus just then. So you're going to use your index finger to play the 4th fret of your A string, and then hammer on the rest of the bar with your ring finger. Hammer on the 10th fret of your D string with your index finger in your tapping hand, 9th fret of the B string with your middle finger of your tapping hand, and then you're going to do the 6th fret of your E string with your middle finger. And then instead of playing the chord, so in the last time we did this kind of motion, this pattern, we played a chord down here, you're going to play the notes one after the other. So you're going to go 15 on your D string, 14 on your B string. And then we're going to do kind of like a bunch of legato. So after you do this, you got to kind of get yourself in finger picking mode. Use your thumb here to play the open A string. So it's open A, 4th fret on your A string, 6th fret on your A string, 8th fret on your A string, and then 6th fret on your D string, 8th fret on your D string, 10th fret on your D string. It's that transition to the 6 on your D string. And then after you get through that legato, you're going to tap onto 13 with your tapping hand, 13th fret of your D string, and the 13th fret of your B string. And then when you pull off this 13, you got to be ready on your 4th fret with your middle finger. You're going to do this really gnarly. So you're going to do a slide from 4 to 6. I use my ring finger here. You probably use any finger. It might change from performance to performance. I'm actually not sure. And then you're going to hammer on the 13th fret on your E string. So that whole part together. I guess it's worth noting that when I switch over in that legato, you go, so it's thumb to get that open A started, and then you legato through the 4, 6, 8, and then I use my index finger down here to get the D string started on that 6. And then 13. And then we're going to go into kind of the regular part of the verse, which is chordsy, but there's also some tapping. First, you're going to get back into that C sharp chord, but we're actually going to leave the D to be played with this finger, barring the 4th fret. You're going to give it that nice wrap with the back. I use my fingernails kind of up on the fretboard. So you're going to play that chord, 4, 4, 6, 6 on your A through B strings. Then you're going to hammer on the 5th fret with your pinky on the B string. And then you're going to tap with your index finger on the 10th fret of your D, 9th fret of your B. So the first chord is, and And then so after you do that first tap on the 9th and 10th of your D and B respectively, you're going to pull up with your tapping hand to get the chord to ring out again. And then you're going to hammer on and basically do from the hammer on into the end of the riff. And then instead of tapping 9 and 10 on your D and B strings respectively, you're going to tap on 9 and 10 on your E and G strings respectively. So that's that beginning of the verse. That's that first chord. And then the second chord, you're going to go with the 6th fret on your E string, 6th fret on your D, and 6th fret on your E. And then tap on 10 on your D, 9 on your B string. And then you're going to switch. You could use lots of fingers to play this 6th fret. You like to do this chord, to do the 666, to do this devil chord, 666, to do that chord. So after you tap, before you pull off with your tapping hand, you're going to switch your finger to this A flat here. So it's, and I guess I kind of impulsively put my finger back on this C up here, but it's not necessary because it doesn't ring out. I think it's just like a weird tick. I've gotten used to it. And then your other hammer on is going to happen when we're on that A flat again. It's going to happen on the 9th fret of your A string and the 8th fret of your G string. And then we're going to do the beginning of the verse again. So you guys already know how to do that one. And then we're going to go, I pull up with my index finger on the fretboard to get that nice, instead of because I don't want it to snap, I want it to kind of come out without that snap on it. So we're playing the 6th fret of the A string, 8th fret of the G string, 9th fret of the B string. Pull up to get that chord to play. And then hammer on 11, 11 with your tapping hand. So it's 11 on the D string and 11 on the B string. And then as that chord is ringing out down there, we're going to move our hand back into this position, which is another kind of C sharp. But in the root, we're going to put down an E flat. And so it's like an E flat. So 6 on your A string, 6 on your G string, 6 on your B string. And now this like crazy, it's like the beginning of that riff that started the verse, but in double time. And then at the end of it, we're putting this slide from the 11th fret of your D string to the 13th fret of your D string. It goes by so fast, and I kind of like the sound of it better. By the end of the riff, you're actually kind of having to turn it into that first chord of the second run through the verse. And so you know that part of the verse. And then instead of fooling around with any other kind of tapping riffs and weirdness, we're just going to do triplet strumming. We're going to do that triplet feel, but then we're going to get a palm mute in there. And the way that I'm strumming here, I'm strumming down with my nails again to get that kind of harsh rap. And then when I come back up, I use the back of my thumb. And the back of my thumb kind of creates that on the way back up. And then we do a palm mute for the second while I'm moving up back to this chord that's the E flat on your A string, and then an E flat again on your G, and then the 9th fret on your B string. And then again tapping 11 on D and B. And then back into that C sharp that has the E flat in the root instead, which is probably nothing like a C sharp, but it looks kind of like a C sharp bar chord, so I'm calling it that. And then we get into the staccato, which nicely, it's just a bunch of chords played in staccato rhythm one after the other. The chord, the way I play it, and I don't know how I get into this chord quickly, I think I've just done it a bunch of times. You play the 9th fret on your A string with your middle finger. Your index finger plays the 8th fret of your D. The pinky finger comes in and plays the 10th fret of your G string, and then the 9th fret of your B is played by your ring finger. And I'm using these 4 fingers to pick those strings simultaneously. This part, it's the first staccato part is just a 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, rest, rest. 1, 1, 2, rest, rest. 1, 1. So it's actually like a 3, 2, 1, deliberately a 3-2-1, separated by that one staccato in the middle that kind of says we're going to start this thing again. And then we're going to move into the bridge where you strum that chord. So what I do is I mute my E, my high E, by bending this index finger that's playing the 8th fret on my D string. I'm laying my hand down to mute that bottom chord. And I don't always do that perfectly, but you should try to aim for that. And then we're going to do kind of like a pretty little tapping riff up high here. So I'll try to make this as visible as possible to you. So you're going to tap the 15th fret of your D string with your index finger, and the 14th fret of your B string with your middle finger, and slide that up. And then when you lift up with that middle finger after it slides, you kind of want to try to play that chord again with your middle finger pulling up. And then tap again on the 18th fret of your D string, 18th fret of your B string. I'm using my index finger and middle finger for most of these. And same thing, when you pull up after that legato, try to hit as much of that chord as you can on the way through. And then we're going to come back into another slide from the 15th fret of your G string to the 17th fret of your G string. And then we're going to hammer on the 17th fret of your D string, 17th fret of your G string, and the 16th fret of your E string. So the second half of that, the lead up is all exactly the same, but instead of just playing a single, we're going to do my little homage to Invalids where they do kind of a quick... After that part, we're going to move into the You Should Have Another Drink part of the bridge. Basically that chord that we've been doing the staccatos on, that we've been hanging out with for this last portion of the song, you're going to just strum upwards on it. If you're a better finger picker than I am, you can do it that way, probably get a more consistent sound. If you don't finger pick, you should start learning to do it that way. Then we're going to do the same kind of hammer on the 15th fret on your D string, hammer on the 14th fret of your B string, slide up to the 16th fret of your B string. Again, pull up to play the chord. Same thing, hammer on through the 18th fret, slide back down. Pulling up to play the chord, and then... So basically, instead of just playing the chord like we did in the last section, we're picking through it. So it does change there. After the first section, that's the first way I end it. The second way I end it, I go and hammer on the 18th fret of the G string and the 18th fret of the E string simultaneously. And then on the last ending, we do the staccato again. So they all start with a... but they end different ways. So if the first way ends, second way ends, and the third way ends, fourth way ends the second way did. And that's all indicated in the sheet music, conveniently. Now we're going to do the chorus, which is very similar to the beginning of the song. You guys remember that fanfare? And then after you do that chord, you're going to keep these two fingers that you're using to play the 6th fret of your D and B strings, and you're going to use your middle finger to play the 6th fret on your E. And then hammer on the 10th and 9th fret of your D and B strings, respectively. So that's the first time through the chorus. Will you stop? And then we play this super fun riff that I also play way too fast. So remember that chord in the beginning, that E flat that we were playing? So you play E flat and the octave of E flat. I use my index finger, middle finger, and ring finger to do that. And then hammer on the 11th fret with your index finger and middle finger of your tapping hand on the D string and B string respectively. So I just instead of playing it this way, I play it this way at the beginning of the song because I have more time. But in this part of the song, when I do that, it's not a C sharp with an E flat in the root anymore. It's just me barring the 6th fret with my index finger from the D string all the way down. And when I pull off the 11, my finger's back there, and it's ready for me to do this slide thing where I slide from the 9th fret to the 11th fret on the E string. And then pull off so that you get to ring out that 6th fret that you're holding down. And then you're going to tap the 11th fret of your B string and slide up to the 13th fret of your B string. So it goes. And then we're going to do tap the 10th fret on your B string, or 10th fret on your D string, 9th fret on your B string. And I do a slide there because I'm a rock star and rock stars do slides. And then you do another tap before going back into the chorus. And it's that same tap that you just did, the 10th fret and the 9th fret. And then we'll go back into the... And so the second time through, you only do this tap at the end of that riff with the legato. You're only going to do that once, whereas you do it twice the first time. So after you do it once, you're going to go back and do the riff that you did at the beginning of verse 1. And then we'll move into the second verse. This is similar to a halftime version of the first verse, but there's just a lot more finger picking involved. So we're going to start with, I have the 4th fret barred with my index finger. I use my middle finger and ring finger to play the 6th frets because I need my pinky freed up to hammer onto the 7th fret. And so after you do that, you're going to play the E string, which is the 4 that you've barred with your index finger. And then come back down and play the B string. That's where you hammered on to the 7th fret of your B string. So after you do that, we're going to do a tapping section that's similar to the tapping section in the bridge. So you're going to do tap on the 15th fret of your D string, 14th fret of your B string. Pull up, try to hit as many notes as you can. And then we're going to tap onto the 16th fret of your D and B strings. And then the 18th fret of your D and B strings. This is the D and B portion of the song. Could be mistaken for drum and bass, but it is not. So you play through that C sharp chord, but you could just reasonably hammer on. But yeah, I do slide up. And then you're going to transition into the playing 6 on your E string, 6 on your D string, 6 on your B string. And it's the same as the first verse. Hammer on the 10th fret of your D string, 9th fret of your B string. And then lift up, using your index finger to play the A flat. Lift up, playing that chord with your tapping hand. And then play the 9th fret of your A string, 10th fret of your G string. So the same way as the first verse, played this, just halftime. And then we're going to play the same riff that we played in the first verse that was like breakneck speed, but we're doing it halftime here. And then we're going to do the D and B, the drum and bass riff, with a dotted 8th note there. And then we're going back to the chorus. And you guys already know this part. Let me do the staccato part again. 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, and then the riff from the beginning of the first verse. And that, folks, is a song. And I'm still trying to perfect it to perform it myself. So forgive me for any of my clams through all of that. And I hope you guitar players out there gathered something and that I was able to explain it well enough.